What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by PingPong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Happy Monday, everyone. Ryan Kramer with Crossover Commerce here. Thanks for joining us live again on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Super excited to kick off my week. We have 4 episodes lined up all throughout the week. And then on Thursday, I'm actually hosting a webinar, so tune into PingPong Payments for that. But on Crossover Commerce, we have 4 just knockout guests that we're going to be bringing you super high-end content to help you as an Amazon seller grow your business and walk away with tips and tricks to grow to the next level. Again, if you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for joining us live on the social channels. We also post these on our podcast on both Apple Music, Amazon Music, as well as Spotify and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. For your consumption to download those, search Crossover Commerce, or if you have a question, go ahead and tag me in it and I'll make sure you get to the right link. But today on episode 44, I wanted to kick off this week something where we kicked off the show back in, I want to say August, where we were talking about patents, trademarks, and copyrights. I brought in another perspective with Rich Goldstein. He's actually a business coach, and also he is an entrepreneur that helps safely grow Amazon sellers' businesses by protecting their IP with patents and trademarks. So he's specific in that realm. So we're going to get his perspective on how to grow your business. If you have any sort of specific questions or just questions in general about the industry, about Amazon. And we were actually just talking about Clubhouse before we hopped into here. So how he's grown his business over the past 26 years and then taped more than 2,000 patents for his clients. So that's why I want to bring him on today. And joining us on Crossover Commerce today is Rich Goldstein of, I want to say Goldstein Patent Law. Is that the technical term, Rich?
Yep, you got it.
Look at that. See, I knocked it out of the park. No notes or anything.
But hey, you did great. That was perfect.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. We're kind of talking a bunch of different topics before we hopped on, but I appreciate your time away from what you're doing in real life. I say real life. This is not real life when I talk to people, but I get to learn more about the industry from professionals like yourself. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we, for those people who may not have heard or know about your background or what you specialize in, maybe kind of walk us through like how you got into not just the e-commerce space, but how you got into the patent space, what you do for individuals who are looking to sell online or already selling online, and kind of walk us through who is Rich Goldstein.
Cool. Well, that's a very existential question.
Who are any of us, really?
I went to State University of New York at Stony Brook studying electrical engineering. At the same time, I started a business. I was selling salon supplies. I was going into beauty salons and selling all the stuff that they used, all the professional equipment and chemical supplies, things like that. So as I got further into engineering, I realized the reality of being an engineer would be working on the same project day in, day out for maybe 5 years at a time, not even designing a machine or whatever, but some little piece of it. So it's like you're not designing this aircraft, you're designing this valve that attaches to the air vent above the seat, and spend the next 5 years working on that. And I knew, with my ADD brain, that it just would not be satisfying for me. And so I learned about patent law, which is a field where you need to be a lawyer and have a technical background such as engineering. And so I went on to law school, and I got a law degree. But while I was in law school, and I worked at a law firm during the summer, I realized again that kind of working at a law firm wouldn't be the right fit for me. So I decided to start my own law firm when I graduated, and which is a really unusual path. But it's been great. And, 26 and a half years and I'm still here. So it worked out. Yeah, so, that's a bit about me and what I do. Over the last, couple and a half decades, I've worked with more than 10,000 entrepreneurs and have been helping them to understand like what's possible with regard to protection, and then help them go on to get protected and to get patents and get trademarks. And over the last few years, I've been working quite a lot with Amazon sellers. I've
So
had
that was something that kind of like morphed into kind of your own niche, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started hanging out in digital marketing spaces, and like I'm in Digital Marketers War Room Mastermind. And I got there really because I've always loved business, and I've always loved marketing, and I went into War Room to really focus on my marketing. I was about to launch my book, and I wanted to do it right, and so I said, let me join this mastermind to give me the right kick in the butt to do everything as well as I can. But then when I got there, I realized that I was surrounded by people that needed help with trademarks, and some with patents too. And then someone from one of my groups, someone that was in War Room with me, someone you probably know, Steve Simonson,
Right.
he invited me to speak at his mastermind group, which was a group of Amazon sellers a few years back. And when I got there, I realized that was an even better niche because, like, whereas at War Room and in digital marketing spaces, some people need patents and they all need trademarks. Among e-commerce people, they mostly all need patents and definitely need trademarks. So it's been and then I was invited to speak at other events, and I've been really just riding that wave of being well-known person within the field that knows about IP, that knows about patents and trademarks. And I've got lots and lots of friends in the field now, in that area now, in the Amazon seller space. So it's been really cool.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of the funny things I think we were mentioning is how the community is so helpful to each other in terms of like making sure people understand if one person's successful in one regards, they can refer to another individual. In this case, you kind of met with somebody, and then it kind of introduced its way to this whole other network, which I find super fascinating, especially in a time where it's hard for us to get out and do all the handshaking right now. So there's other ways to obviously do the networking. But before we go into that, maybe, so you got this inspiration in terms of patents that you really, it spoke to you really. What is, for people who don't know, especially our audience in the international marketplace, what is the benefit to having a patent or copyright? What's maybe the differences? I know those are two separate questions, but can you walk us through the basics and then why it applies to Amazon sellers specifically?
Yeah, well, that's three separate questions now.
Three separate questions. Yeah, I have a stream of conscious. I always throw
Okay. Well, why? There's lots of reasons why. And I would say the most common reason that people have in mind why, though, is because someone told them to, right? Like someone said, hey, you should patent that. And without really recognizing what the real benefits are, that's the default. That's where most people go to, is like, oh yeah, people told me I should patent this. It's like, well, like, let's take a close look at that. And there's a lot of different reasons. Like, the main value of a patent is the ability to exclude other people from making, using, or selling the product that's covered by the patent. So, that on like a high level, that's what it is. Now, how it benefits you will depend. I mean, it could benefit you by allowing you to differentiate yourself from competitors' products and therefore grab more market share, or to prevent competition. It could be valuable to you as the foot in the door that allows you to make a licensing agreement with someone else that wants to also make and sell that product. And it could also be for credibility purposes, either personal or business credibility, by the fact that you have the patented technology. I mean, there's truly, like, in the first chapter of my book, I list, I think, 18 different areas to consider of why a patent may or may not be for you.
It's a lot.
So, yeah.
Just
by the way,
not just one or two, just 18.
You can get that chapter for free. Yeah, no, there's a lot of different reasons, and some of them are better than others. But it's important to know what your reason is. Another reason that's what I'd call undistinguished, meaning that people aren't really like thinking about it. It's just kind of unquestioned, is that people will often, a reason why people go for a patent is because they're afraid someone's going to steal the idea. And when I say that, I'm not talking about afraid of some consequences of stealing the idea. Like, like it's going to hurt their business in some way, or it's going to cost sales or whatever. I'm talking about the actual fear. Like they don't want to feel bad about it. That if someone stole their idea, like they'll have that gut-wrenching feeling like, oh man, I did it again, I messed up. And just to avoid that bad feeling, people go and patent something. And what I like to do is to bring awareness to that, is like say, you know what, like if that's really the reason you're doing it, okay, cool. But maybe take a look at whether it's really going to hurt your business if someone stole your idea. It's not necessarily true, but I think very often people just recognize like, oh man, I'd feel terrible, and that's why I'm doing it. Like, okay, if you want to spend $15,000-$20,000 to avoid feeling terrible, I'm feeling good, and definitely, definitely is a worthwhile endeavor. But like once you look at it more carefully, you might choose something different.
So the situation you're more than likely saying the patent is, if it's a proprietary either idea or product, in this case, patent product, is that the easiest way that you typically tell people, is the P and the P? Is that the right way to kind of memorize it?
You mean okay, now talking about in terms of the difference between the two, what is for?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, P and P, like if you exactly, if you're talking about the idea for a product, then you're typically talking about a patent. Like if you're talking about the structure for a product or the shape of it, that would be what a patent is for. In the former case, a utility patent is for structural differences, and a design patent is for like just the ornamental appearance of a product. But yes, so that's what patents are for. Trademarks, on the other hand, are for branding. So the name, the logo, the slogan that you use to sell a product, those could all be trademarks.
Gotcha. So what is there one benefit that outweighs the other, and that's more beneficial for an Amazon seller in this case? Case in point being, are patents going to save you money in the long term? You said it's pretty expensive, but is that going to save them from being taken over or having a competitor swoop in, buy it for less, and sell the same product on Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say when it comes to Amazon, probably the biggest reason is to prevent competitors from coming in and just kind of making the same product, bidding more than you on pay-per-click, and kind of taking your market. So, I mean, on Amazon, you can, if someone's infringing a patent, you could do an IP complaint and get them shut down.
How often is that case brought up with you or your clients? Is that pretty typical, or is that something that's
I don't usually get involved with that. I mean, like I've been kind of directing them to other people that focus more on those type of logistical issues within Amazon. But what I can say is that for many people, it's been extremely successful to be able to shut down all of the competitive listings when they're infringing their patent.
Interesting.
I'll also say that like there's something unique about Amazon and patents in that design patents are very valuable and almost a no-brainer. Now, see, I talked a little bit about the design and utility patents a moment ago, but in like throughout my career, conventional wisdom is that utility patents are more valuable because they cover the concept. They cover the structure. They cover kind of what makes the thing tick. Where a design patent is just about the way it looks on the outside. And so someone changes the appearance, they're going to get around the design patent. So it's not worth so much. And that's been the conventional wisdom. But when it comes to Amazon, there's two things to consider. Number one is when a competitor copies you, they tend not to be very imaginative. Right? They just,
it's a lazy form of stealing something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're not like, okay, that's a cool idea. Like, let's use that as inspiration to come up with our own similar product. They're like, no, they just knock it off. They just make it just like yours. And then it's going to look the same. And so it's going to infringe the design patent. The other thing is on Amazon, when you do an IP complaint, think about who reviews these IP complaints. It's like the same type people that review your, your customer service issues, or that deal with the, any of your problems in running your seller account, right? I mean, it's someone making me $10 an hour, or like in a third world country perhaps. So like basically what happens, so imagine you do an IP complaint, you've got your patent which shows the product, shows what it looks like, and then they've got the competitive product, and they look at the two and they say it looks similar, and they shut them down. So it's not really hard to get your competitor shut down when you have a design patent. And design patents cost a lot less than utility patents, so they become a no-brainer for Amazon sellers.
I was gonna say, so when you are looking between the cost comparison between the two, what does it typically run to get those two different types of patents that you were kind of touching on, utility and then the design patent?
Yeah, design patents is a few $1,000s, and utility patents definitely going to be north of 10,000.
Okay.
So utility patent costs a lot more. So to me, if you have a product that has a distinctive look to it, then doing and you're selling it on Amazon, then doing a design patent is a no-brainer.
Gotcha. So when you do those kinds of patents, what's the timeline for individuals to start the process, whether it's working with you or themselves? I'm assuming in this case you would have to work with a licensed professional in order to file the proper paperwork, and then upon completion, get the paperwork and have it themselves. What's that timeline look like for people?
Yeah, it typically takes a few months to get everything together and filed. Might take a year to actually get the patent granted to you. But the important thing is to get it filed, because once you make it public, you lose the rights to it. In most of the world, you lose the rights immediately. And in the US, if worst case, a year goes by, then you've absolutely lost the right to ever apply for a patent. So really the time to do it, the time to apply, is before you make it public, is before you even list it.
So it's right from the get-go, even though you may not know how great in sales it could be just protection in general, almost like insurance, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely exactly like insurance. It's definitely a risk, right? You don't know how well a product's going to do. But if you have a good hunch about something, it doesn't take much to make it worthwhile. I mean, it's like if the product, if it turns out to be, let's say, something that sells $100,000 worth a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, and you would spend a few $1,000s on a design patent. So if you manage to even slow down the competition by one day, you've paid for it. Now, not everything's going to be a $100,000 seller, but you can put it into context like that. So, okay, if it's something that sells, $20,000 worth per month, then still, like, just a few days of reduced competition pays for it.
Absolutely. What about does the same rules apply if you're an international seller? Like if I'm in China, as well as if I'm in the United States, is there different processes to go through in order to obtain a U.S. patent or a U.S. trademark?
Well, patents are territorial. And
Sure.
So if you really wanted protection in China against having things sold in China, then you'd need a Chinese patent. But in general, the U.S. patent is the one you want. This is the biggest market. And
Right.
And this is where you'd want to shut people down if they step on your IP toes.
Absolutely. So in theory, you can actually take some successful product if they don't have a patent in a different, I'm not telling people they should do this, but in theory, they could just take that same concept if it's not protected in a marketplace like Australia.
Yeah, no, I'll cut you off there. You can't.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have to have invented it in order to apply. You can't just see a product that you think has potential and then file a patent application for it. You have to have actually designed it. And
how does one go about verifying that they are the sole inventor? They came up with the concept and idea.
Well, you attest to it on the penalties of perjury and imprisonment. And so, you don't have
There's
to.
that.
You don't have to prove it, but it's not something you want to do. Is commit perjury in order to get a patent.
Yeah.
How easy it would be for someone else to prove it Sometimes easier than other situations, but not something you want to do.
Gotcha. We had a couple questions, and then obviously person who's a friend of the show and a friend of both of us, Rob Stanley of Accrue Me. Are there items that Rich is talking about that's covered in his book? Obviously, right? This would be in your download.
Absolutely.
Ebook.
I mean, I guess that's an invitation to talk about my book.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick it into it. So what made you decide to write a book?
Okay, so basically, this came about around 2015. I was contacted by the American Bar Association and asked to write a book to explain to entrepreneurs how patents work. And it's interesting because I spent a lot of time going to events and conferences and other spaces previously. Like in 2013, I was in Europe 6 times going to different innovator events, and people would often say to me, well, okay, you're a patent attorney, like, so what's exactly the angle here? And like, I don't quite know, but I created a lot of relationships. And when the American Bar Association contacted me, and granted, most people pitch them to do a book. They don't usually call people. So they called me and asked me to write this book. And I said, well, why did you think of me? Why did you pick me? And they said, well, we see that you're out there at all these events, and that's what we want in an author, is we want someone who's out there in the world, going to events, meeting people. So cool. I didn't quite know what that monetization path would be. But that's kind of how that worked out, is that they asked me to write the book. So I did. I wrote the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. And there it is. And it's really in plain English. I mean, it's truly written the same way that I talk. It's like, this is what it is. This is what you need to know. A, B, C, and D. So
sounds pretty simple.
You could ordinarily get it on Amazon, except for the fact that it's sold out on Amazon now because of Clubhouse. So for what that's worth, it's currently sold out. You can get it on Kindle. If you like to read things on Kindle, then you can get it on Kindle on Amazon, because Kindle is inexhaustible. But yeah, and I could also, send people a copy too. I have plenty on hand. If anyone wants one, happy to send you one.
I mean, that's definitely something I want to consume through. So maybe if someone actually asks our questions, or if wants to watch it, if they're watching this live, or they want to get a copy of this book, go ahead and tag myself or put in hashtag Rich Goldstein book, and we'll make sure that we get you the contact information, find out how we can get you a copy of the book. So if that's an invitation, Rich, that we can get people your information in their hands, we can figure out how to get that to them as well. Other question that you said, because you're sold out on Amazon because of Clubhouse, that was the other question that kind of came through again from Rob Stanley. How is Rich using Clubhouse to drive clients to his business?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, for those of you that are on Clubhouse, I mean, I think you know what I mean. It's the most fascinating platform. I hear this over and over again by people that are rather sophisticated business people. Like they'll all say the same thing. I've never seen anything like this platform. There's so much engagement. People are spending, 12 hours or more a day on it. It's audio chat. It's audio chat rooms where you could listen in, or you could be up on stage talking, or you could raise your hand to get invited to go up on stage. And so many fascinating, great conversations going on. How I've been using it. Well, one of the things is I've been offering my book for free, and I've gotten a ton of free book inquiries. I've gotten, just in the last few weeks, gotten several clients from Clubhouse. And lots of engagement all around. Like I do the office hours, which is like a live Q&A program. I do it every Friday at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I've gotten increased traffic there from Clubhouse. So, so it's kind of really kind of helped every other channel that I have going. And so it's pretty amazing. And I'd like to get more intentional about it, like create more of those pathways. I'm actually building a landing page that's for just a simple address that I could give out, simple web address I could give out to allow people to either sign up for office hours to kind of get reminders about the webinar, to get a free book, to get in touch with my team about possibly working together. So like, in terms of the question of how am I using Clubhouse to drive clients, a little bit awkwardly now, but it's still working like crazy well. And I'm looking to make it more efficient.
Well, I think that's the thing is with any sort of kind of social media, I would call this social media by every stretch of imagination, that it wasn't, I think the Amazon community has really just taken this and really made it its own. Everyone who's anyone, if you're a seller, if you're an e-commerce expert, if you're a lawyer, if you're anyone who's been successful on Amazon or on these platforms one way or another. And it's fascinating to share the concept and ideas, and everyone's in love with it. I think that it had this place because of the COVID era of we can't get together and discuss these opportunities, but it's also reaching a wider audience as well, not just Amazon sellers, but just business people in general. What's kind of like your favorite, going off of this topic, way to educate people that wasn't in the Amazon space on Clubhouse? I think that would be something everyone would be curious to learn about.
My favorite way to educate people,
or like what room, I guess, in Clubhouse, because I'm still new to the whole platform as well. What was one of your most engaging, rooms, if you will, that wasn't just centered around Amazon? It was maybe people took a lot away from that content, and that's, how you can grow outside not just the Amazon ecosystem, but a little bit farther outside your typical reach, if that makes sense.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Well, I mean, it all started with this running $1 million business room, which went for about 14 days. Started, I think, Christmas Eve or the 23rd of December, and it ran into January, and it went 24 hours a day. And I was among the moderators that kind of was there a good portion of the day every day, and like people switched off, of course. And also Paul Barron was there a lot, and a lot of the people that do some of the bigger rooms now, it's kind of like that was a boot camp. We all kind of hung out in that space, and it was just like lots of different people, lots of very successful entrepreneurs with different expertise on stage as moderators. And then there were just a steady stream of people that would raise their hand, come up on stage, ask a question, and then someone would answer, or a few different people would answer. And that was probably among the most engaging, kind of longest running rooms that there were. And since then, there have been a lot like that. There are a lot of different rooms on different topics, some related to running a business or related to maximizing social media or what have you. And you'll get a panel of maybe 30 people or so that have different expertises that can answer questions. So that's been really great. And I've also run my own rooms. I've run rooms regarding protecting your ideas. The last couple of Thursdays in a row, I did this at 12 Pacific time, 3 Eastern. I think I'm going to do it again this Thursday. And I've just had a steady stream of people coming up on stage. And it's been pretty amazing. But circling back to the other thing, I mean, this is just how wild it is. Like, so, okay, so there's a bunch of us, like say like 30 of us up there kind of answering questions to audience. Maybe there's 1,000 people in the room. So lots of people listening. And then Damon John shows up. I'm like, oh, Damon's on stage. Hey, like, we talked to him for a while. And then Grant Cardone shows up. And Grant Cardone's been on the platform a lot. And he's up there and he's talking, and we're all asking him questions, blah, blah, blah. And Tai Lopez, someone who, he gets mixed reviews from people. Some people think he's brilliant, and some people kind of like see his brand from maybe 10 years ago and like, oh, that guy. But if you listen to him speak, he's really smart. And for a lot of the people there, it's like, we never saw him that way. Like, we're like, well, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And so it's been very interesting. And like, even like, in a room that I've been in a bunch, like, Paris Hilton shows up, Paris Hilton's following me now. Like, okay, that's weird.
All right.
But
isn't that fun to have like these, what I was going to say, like, what's the kind of the most bizarre person that like you never thought would be following you on this platform? Because it's pretty easy. Some people have the north of tens of thousands of followers already for a platform that's been out less than a year. What's the most shocking follower, I would say?
Well, I'd say that it's got to be Paris Hilton, right?
Paris Hilton. Hey, she's trying to pick up patents and laws and things like that.
Yeah, but I've got tons of like really high-end business gurus that didn't know me from Adam before and are following me now too. And it's just very interesting because most of the people that are pretty involved in Clubhouse that moderate these stages are following me too, and it's like the level of relationship that's been created in a short amount of time is kind of crazy. Like I'll walk into these rooms and I'll be immediately invited up to be in the speaking group, and I didn't know these people a month ago, but they all kind of know me, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we just had a patent question, Rich." Like, okay, cool.
And you're invited to the front of the class all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. So,
and this is yielded in, you said, client's business. This is all of this social media. It's where do you think is the next step for just an audio, platform, because there's no other way to kind of stand out to people besides just this, besides this one app. Where does this innovate from there, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like that was a conversation earlier today in one of the rooms. Was like some people say like, well, will Club Space? I just messed it up. Will
No, it's all
Clubhouse
good.
become the MySpace of social media? Like everybody thought it was awesome, but then someone iterated one better, right? And we were talking about that and like, well, what would make it better? What would be the thing that that kind of makes it obsolete? And I can't isolate it. I mean, I think there's something really amazing about it. I mean, part of it is like, right, through the pandemic, we're so used to doing Zoom meetings. But one of the most amazing things about this audio only thing is like, you can just go about your business. You can go about your day. I mean, like, like I'm sitting there sometimes and I'm doing work. I'm looking down. Like you wouldn't do that usually on a Zoom call. Maybe that's the least impolite thing you can do. Like, but you still
have your camera off and you're still working.
You try to keep looking. I mean, sometimes, like I pick up my guitar and I'm just like, I'm playing guitar, and my microphone's muted, of course, and I could still hear what's going on, but I'm doing something else. And like, you'd never do that on a Zoom call, right?
At least that would not be respectful.
Right. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's like you could walk around your house, you could walk downstairs, like make myself a snack, like it's like, and people are very often like in the gym or whatever, and someone will kind of call on them. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of breath. Like I'm actually on the treadmill right now, blah, 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 but I wanted to answer your question. So there's something about the audio only that seems to work quite well.
Interesting. And it's not just, obviously we don't think it's a fad. We think it's how business will continue to innovate and hopefully grow. It's fascinating that people feel like they're missing out. And I think that's part of the allure of it is it's an invite only right now. You have to know a person to have like 3 invitations or however many they give out. Do you think that there's a strategic mindset to that? Or do you think that it's just a platform to hold that kind of capability with, if you think about it on a technical side, you have every possibility of user that can audio stream, and that's data, and that's a load on any sort of system at any one time. Do you think it's just by design or it's by accident that they did this?
Which part?
I guess my question is like, limited to users.
Yeah, no, 100%. And by the way, they do town hall every Sunday at noon Eastern. Like the founders get on and they just answer lots and lots of questions. Like, and they're very transparent about what they're up to. And yeah, I mean, it's considered to be in beta, right? It's in beta, but it's got a $1 billion valuation now with the latest the latest raise that they just did. So yeah, like it's kind of like they want to get this stuff straight before they just open it up. And so it's been growing rather quickly. There's more than 1 million people on the platform now, but still they are limiting it because they're dealing with those issues, and they still only have 8 employees with all this interest, and they still are relatively small. And yeah, I think they want to get it right before they open it up.
The question is, did they come to you in terms of patents and trademarks for their kind of services?
Nope, they did not. I don't know what they've done about that, if anything. I actually just took a look. I couldn't find the trademark for Clubhouse, although it would be a rather difficult trademark to get. At
I'm
this
sure.
point, there were a whole bunch of other clubhouses, or clubhouse items. But no, they did not come to me.
So what would be, I guess, like departing from the Clubhouse topic? I mean, we can always go back into it. When people are,
and I'll always end up back on Clubhouse. So you're right.
I know, well, which is not a bad point. Well, maybe we can circle back. When people are asking these kinds of questions in terms of, is there ever a stupid question in terms of what can be copyrighted or patented or trademarked? Because they're all individual items, but when they come to you and are like, hey, I want to do this, do you kind of just think to yourself sometimes like they're simply doing this not to protect themselves, but because, like you said earlier, someone told them to do that? Why?
Yeah. Right. Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't consider any of them to be stupid questions because there's just a whole lot of misconceptions. And even among rather sophisticated business people, they just don't understand how this stuff works. And so there are crazy misconceptions. You know, like I'll get someone who's running a $100 million company and they'll say something like, we got a patent and we did it to make sure that we're not infringing on any other patents. And that's just not how it works. You having a patent doesn't mean you're not infringing on other patents. And you might not know that, Ryan, and that's okay that you don't know that. But someone who runs $100 million company should know that. They should know that you know, you can have a patent and still be infringing someone else's patent. It's just because this stuff is weird and complicated, right? And so it's like, you know, there's no, you know, dumb questions, and people say all the time, say things like you should copyright that invention, which isn't true. You don't copyright an invention. Copyright is for content, right? Copyright is for works of visual art, which can be like web page graphics or music, or a sculpture, right? It's for content. But people don't quite understand that, and that's okay. And that's why I'm really passionate about educating people on this. And, you know, I'm happy to take whatever time and use whatever platform I have available to help people understand it better so that they can make good decisions about IP.
Which is why Clubhouse is such a great tool to do that, to educate the masses as easily as you can. I brought it back to Clubhouse first. Look at me. What is it? Just you in your firm, or what kind of team do you have underneath you or working with you?
Yeah, I have a bunch of other attorneys, and I have and some admin people and some marketing people. So I've got an awesome team with an awesome culture, and we're growing now too. I'm looking to hire some more people, and but yeah, it's been pretty great. It's pretty awesome.
Do you consider your audience or your customers be US based, or are you looking for like international? What's kind of like the growth aspect for what a lot of your clients are coming from?
Well, I mean, I'd say 90% of my clients are domestic. I do have some international, especially I've got a whole bunch in Australia because I mean, a lot of Australian sellers, they sell in the US, right? So Australia and UK, I do tend to have a good amount of clients in. But in terms of growth, I mean, I don't need to grow internationally. It's like I probably capture like 0.1 or 0.01% of the market in the United States, right? So there's not like I need to expand internationally to expand. I just expanding just means capturing a bit more of the market, and it's like everybody is capturing such a small part of the market that it's not like I even consider any of the people in this space to be competitors. It's like, yeah, I mean, we all could win. We all could have successful businesses.
Everyone can eat. Yeah, everyone can have cake and eat it too. Yeah. So it's there's just too much opportunity out there. What's a story that maybe you can share with us in terms of a huge success? It was like a life-changing success for a seller because you were able to either protect them or help them remedy some sort of problem that they ran into with their business.
Huh. You know, I don't know that I have one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just not seeing it like it was life-changing, you know, for them. But for me, it just feels more routine, like where it's just like, yep, we got them the patent, and yep,
you did your job.
Shut down their competition, you know, and Yeah, I mean, I can't isolate anything and say like, well, this was just over the top.
Was there a most gratifying situation where you got to help somebody truly in need, or does that feel like more of a poignant question or an answerable question?
Yeah, I mean, but there've been a lot of those. I mean, it is gratifying to help someone in need, and I'd say most of the time, it's been not that I had to do so much, except that they were laboring under a misconception. Like they just misunderstood their like where they stood in the situation. Like they thought like, oh, I guess I can't make this product because blah blah blah. I was like, no, you absolutely can. Like you don't have to stop here. And just they were able to go ahead and launch a product that they thought that they were prevented from doing. So yeah, I mean, like those types of things all the time.
When you are a seller, because the topic that always come up, I'm going to pivot a little bit. The topic that's really hot, especially on my show, are roll up companies. When you're selling your company to a Thrasio or to an Elevate Brands or to a Heyday or whomever is purchasing your company, what is that process like when they are purchasing your products or brand and you have a patent or a trademark on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know specifically about the process. I don't get involved in transactional
Okay.
situations like that, but I can tell you that having a patent makes a huge difference. Having IP makes a huge difference in not only having that transaction go smoothly, but in the valuation that you get. Because it's like if you're selling a product and maybe you're not particularly differentiated, but you're doing pretty well. So of course, you know, when they're evaluating what it would be worth to purchase your company, they're thinking in terms of like, okay, well, if the bandwagon continued for the next few years, then we would make so much money. And therefore, they're paying you based upon the idea of the party continuing for at least a few years more. And that's why you're getting a multiple on what you're making. But if you have IP, it makes it that much more secure, right? And it also means that your position in the marketplace is that much more secure, where other people can't just step in. And when it comes to a brand, branding and trademarks, it's very important for you to own the rights to your brand. So it makes a huge difference. I mean, one thing I say is that whatever you spend on patents, whatever you spend on IP, you are 100% going to get an ROI if you exit. It might not always seem clear, like if you don't exit. Like, so if you're running the company and you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on IP, and excuse me, and like you might notice that like the competition is less, or that you've managed to shut down some competition. It may or may not seem like a total win. But if you do go to exit, there is really strange math that goes on in terms of you get paid for the IP you have and then some. If you have a half a dozen patents and trademarks, you'll get easily 10 times what you spent on that, because the buyer will say, oh, they have a portfolio of IP and it's worth something, and it's worth way more than you spent on it. So if you do exit, then the IP, or what you spend on IP, becomes a no-brainer.
That's great tidbits of knowledge, because we actually have, people like Thrasio that are coming on our show, and they're trying to educate people in terms of like how we're evaluating people, and even Elevate Brands itself. I know we recently had on the CEOs, and with companies, and those being hot companies that are purchasing brands and sellers who are looking to exit, there's just really that capacity. Like, what are the different multiples that we can be more valuable to either be successful when we, when we exit, or if, there is an opportunity where I want to eventually get there, what should I look like in terms of maximizing my potential? So those are great tips. I've never heard anyone really speak on that. Because of future protections, I'm assuming you would transfer those protections under one brand to another, or whomever's purchasing that from you. I'm assuming it would stay protected that whole entire time, correct?
Yeah, well, presumably they would be purchasing the IP. along with everything else that goes with your company. But it makes it a bit more solid. Having the IP makes it more solid of what they're buying, other than just buying your seller account, which things are going great today, but there isn't as much of a guarantee that it's going to continue as it is now. But having the IP just makes it that much more stable.
Yeah, more secure, more stable. Those all I would agree with you. Before we hop off at the top, or before the top of the hour, a lot of people are going into 2021 with options to diversify. They're looking for ways to protect themselves. But my first question for you would be, what's the best time-saving tips that you can provide for people, whether it's applying for a patent or a trademark, or it's just time-saving techniques in general that you can maybe share with our audience?
Okay. Time-saving tips. Well, I mean, first of all, with regard to, let's talk about the IP side first. So as far as patents, not all patents are created equal. There are patents that cover an overall concept, and then there are some patents that are very weak that are just about the details. So you should make an assessment at an early stage of how different your idea really is, which will lead to whether you can get a patent on a whole concept because the whole concept is new, and whether that's worthwhile. So it doesn't always pay to do a patent, but you should look at that at an early stage. But always do your trademarks. It always pays to protect your brands. Protecting a trademark costs a few $1,000s, and it's always worth it to do a trademark. The other thing with applying for a trademark too is that if someone else, it doesn't work the same way as patents where you lose the rights by putting it out there. As a matter of fact, you need to be selling it in order to complete the process of trademarking to actually get it registered. But if someone else files before you, it's become a way more complicated problem. And so it pays to do a trademark early. So in terms of the timing of it, so there's that. And I think that's probably helpful. Now, in terms of, time saving in general, I'm just thinking of a category of, you mean like saving time with productivity, or kind of what's the spirit
or maybe,
of it?
yeah, the spirit, I guess, of the question would be, people have so much time in the day, and that's a commodity that you can't always get back, in terms of whether it's time spent going through an education process, whether they can come to you instead to educate themselves quicker on patents and trademarks, or they can file it quicker instead of having to go through the mud through it all. And then at the end of the day, there's some quicker way to get to the end point. I guess if that's my question, in that spirit of, is there a way?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely working with me or someone like me would be the most efficient way through the process, right? Because if you have, I mean, first of all, it's not really possible to do a patent on your own. I'd say it's basically impossible to get anything meaningful. With regard to a trademark, I'd say about 1 out of 3 people that apply on their own, they get it through. The question is it worth it for the other 2 out of 3 possibility? But very often what happens though is if you try it on your own or use like a LegalZoom or something like that, you might end up losing a lot of time in that. It takes about 10 months to a year to go through the trademark process, but you might get 8-10 months down into it only to realize you've got to start over again. So it definitely does pay to start the right way. And when it comes to patenting, the other important thing there is like I said, you do need to get professional help to do it correctly. But if someone was working with you, like if I was working with you and I didn't understand your goals, I didn't understand what you were really trying to accomplish, it's quite possible that we can get far down the road only to realize that we're headed for the wrong patent. So I make it extremely important to get to know not just the product you're looking to patent, but also kind of like what is the, like what's the business goal that we're trying to serve? Like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Because that's going to make a tremendous difference in how we steer the process.
That makes sense. And I think like going with a trusted professional like yourself, like you said, it's easy. There's all these technologies out there of like, hey, we can do it ourselves with LegalZoom, or you contact someone on the phone.
It's all done. Really, it is. I mean,
just calling what it is.
Like it sounds self-serving, like, oh yeah, well, of course you're going to tell people they've got to use you or patent attorney, but it's just there's so much BS out there. I mean, people just waste their money left and right by doing the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong way, and more money is wasted on this than is even spent on something that's productive. So
that completely answers my question. Before we recap, and I have Rich Goldstein from Goldstein Patent Law. What is the thing that gets you excited to wake up in the morning and get working with people? What's the one thing that you still find it after all these years of like 26 years, I think you said, of doing this? What's something that still gets you excited, puts a smile on your face to kind of either hop on a Clubhouse chat room or to talk to a potential new customer?
It's just people's excitement. It's like their excitement is exciting to me. I mean, the fact that like they're seeing like a big possibility in something that we're looking at together. That's what keeps me going. And kind of dovetailed into that is I love empowering people. I love when people are excited but maybe don't feel so capable, like having people feel like that this is something that they can do. That this is something that's within their reach, even though they might not have ever done it before. So I enjoy the excitement that people have, and I enjoy just empowering people to step into a bigger version of what they could accomplish.
Amazing. Great stuff, man. I appreciate you coming in and sharing those tidbits of knowledge. For those who are trying to find out more information, they just want to empower themselves, like you said, through your services, through just your general knowledge of the landscape, or just kind of want to pick your brain. What are the best ways to connect with you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, best thing is go to my website, goldsteinpatentlaw.com. I mean, there are videos there that explain the process. There's also ways that you could connect with my team there to set up time to talk with someone on my team and see if it's a match for us to work together. And then I do this office hours every week.
I was going to say the office hours thing I love. I also said something of people need to do office hours where there's just like almost like college, where if you have an idea, exactly when to go to those people for like just open forums of ask your questions. That's amazing that you get to do that on Clubhouse.
Yeah, well, no, this is actually not on Clubhouse. This is on a Zoom webinar. It's something that like you can sign up for and you get notified about. It's actually a little better than Clubhouse because if you ask a question, we'll get to your question. I mean, like, there are a lot of people that show up to office hours, but they're not all asking questions. So, if you do, we'll get to you. I don't think there's been a time when we didn't get to someone's question. So, I do that every Friday at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But you want to sign up for that ahead of time. And then you get the notifications about it. And to do that, you could just go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com/OH. So my website /OH, you could sign up for that.
I love that. And we'll make sure those get in the comment section of all these platforms as well. And then on the podcast too, we'll have the links to get there as well.
Podcast, forgot about the podcast.
And you have your own podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, which has been a lot of fun. I do a podcast called Innovations and Breakthroughs. And I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. And so it's a lot of people who have had an idea and then they were successful with it. And we talk about that path towards being successful. And I've also had a lot of people from this space on it, people who have sold $1 billion worth of products. I have people like Kevin King and Steve Simonson and Tim Jordan and, Paul Barron. I've had lots of sellers, people that have launched their own products, talk of that tale too. So that's called Innovations and Breakthroughs, and you can find it anywhere that podcasts are streamed, on iTunes, Spotify, whatever.
All the fun locations. Yeah, I know that Amazon's actually doing their podcast versions now, so you should check out and make sure that you're listed on there too.
Yep, absolutely. I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, lots of great opportunities.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Rich. I appreciate your time today. Friend of the show now, I appreciate it. Anytime that we have questions, we'll make sure we refer to you for those kinds of questions. If you're watching or listening to this later, everyone, again, Rich, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pull you away real quick, but hold on right there. If you're listening to the show again at a different time, you just need to catch it. You didn't catch us live. Go ahead and tag Rich or myself in it, and we'll make sure that you get your questions answered. Again, thank you so much for joining us today on Crossover Commerce. We're going live. We go live on all of our social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But this also exists on our YouTube page. If you missed an episode, you had different topics that you just missed, go ahead and look at our playlist on YouTube and search for Crossover Commerce on there. And also, again, wherever you download or listen to your podcast, we also exist as well. Just search Crossover Commerce by PingPong Payments. Again, for Rich Goldstein of Goldstein Patent Law, I'm Ryan Kramer. Thank you so much for joining us today on episode 44 of Crossover Commerce. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the EU, more about what the marketplace landscape is looking like with Brexit, with COVID, everything that's hit that landscape over there. We're going to dive into what Amazon sellers should know, as well as if you're thinking about growing into Europe, we're going to talk about it and touch on it with e-commerce experts from over there. Andy Hooper is our guest. So for Rich Goldstein, I'm Ryan Kramer, the host of this show, Crossover Commerce. Thank you for joining us again live. See you next time, everyone.